I'm here at Grace Funeral Chapel with Drew to talk about some of the more practical things that we forget we need to prepare for when planning for a funeral. So can you tell me what some of that may be?
Well, as a funeral director and with a lot of the staff that we work with, we find that we get sort of pulled into estate affairs. So our main task as funeral directors is to plan for that celebration of a life or funeral service or memorial for someone who's died. But inevitably we get asked, well, what about Canada Pension Plan death benefits? Or what about survivors' pensions? Or what about Blue Cross? Or. So you can imagine that the list gets extensive with a complex estate. So while we don't give advice, that's up to the legal professionals in the community to give legal advice on settling an estate. We do have resources for people to follow. If an estate is simple and there's a well-written will that distributes assets and, it sort of defines where do you go from here.
Well, I didn't even realize that there's so many different facets to doing this and putting this all together. So why is it important to try to plan ahead of time?
Well, one of the first things we say to plan ahead of time is to do the will. Like make your last will and testament. And what a lot of people who come in to do funeral pre-planning and give us those instructions, they'll say, oh, I don't need a will. I don't really have anything. I just have an apartment with some furniture and a car, and that's about it. And we say, well, there still is the matter of planning your funeral. So somebody has to be legally responsible for making those decisions and signing the forms to say what we can and what we can't do. And so at a very minimum, even if a person only has a sofa and a TV, you still should have a will to establish an executor to make your funeral plans. And then even things like the CPP death benefit or canceling old age security, you have to have somebody there to do it. And so while a will might seem an unnecessary item for some people, we want to underline that it really is important. Even if you're just to handwrite something and get it witnessed and dated and signed, it's important to have that document so that people know what you want done.
So when looking into this book here to figure out kind of where you need to navigate and what you need to fill out, how long does it roughly take to kind of put this all together for yourself?
Well, an estate can take a very short amount of time. In my own experience, thankfully I haven't had to be in that seat personally, but in my own experience with my grandfather, who had very little when he died, it took 3 years. Because Canada Revenue Agency wanted to see tax information for the year that he passed away, the year after he passed away, and then even the year after that to show that there was no financial activity associated with him. So even in a simple estate, it can take years. So you need to have somebody who's appointed to follow through on that and make sure that it's attended to. Otherwise, who knows what could happen. I don't have the answer to that. And so that's why a will is really important, because we don't know what could happen.
Well, thank you so much, Drew, for your time. Like Drew said, there's so many different things to think about when putting together your estate or your will. So if you need any additional information, then contact Drew or head over to Grace Funeral Chapel.